Well, good evening, everybody, and a warm welcome to Rushcliffe Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting. I'd like to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel, and a recording of the meeting will be available afterwards on said channel. In addition, other people may film, record, post on social media or blog from this meeting. The use of phones when you're not speaking. Thank you. And by way of introductions, my name's Rex Walker. I'm the chair of this committee. To my left, Councillor Andy Brown, the vice chair, and officers supporting this evening: Andrea Cullen, planning manager; Matt Hilton, senior planning officer; Peter Langston, senior planning officer; and Alison Walker, borough solicitor. So moving on to the agenda. Apologies for absence.
We have apologies from Councillor Thomas, and Councillor Way is substituting.
And we're also aware that Councillor Mallender has been travelling today, and those travel arrangements, the delays to her travel arrangements. So we are expecting her to.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wells, yeah.
The first item on the list.
So I think you'll be standing down from the committee for that item as the ward member. Okay, thank you. Any others? Minutes of the previous meeting, they've been previously circulated. Is everybody happy to record those as an accurate reflection of the meeting? Yeah. Okay, very good. Right, then on to business, and we start with Maythorne, Bunny Lane at Keyworth. At the rear, and we'll hand over to Mr. Hilton for the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So members are advised that there are late representation. So the application relates to a detached bungalow located on the north of Bunny Lane on the western edge of Keyworth. The site falls within an area allocated for housing under policy 4.3 of the local plan part 2, and as such it's been removed from the green belt. It's therefore considered that the principle of a residential development of some form in this location is established. The site is located forward of the Bloors residential development approved in 2018. And the application seeks planning permission for the demolition of the existing bungalow and the construction of 3 detached dwellings served by 2 access points. I'm just going to run through some site photos. So this is a view of the existing bungalow. So the view looking west along Bunny Lane out of Keyworth. A view across the site looking east towards the bungalow. Another view out from the edge of the site out west from Keyworth, and then a view looking east into the village. I've got a view from the rear of the or from the east of the site showing the Bloors housing development on the right hand side, and then you can just see to the left there is the existing bungalow. This is a view taken from the other side looking back towards Keyworth, so you can see this community park that's been recently constructed in place of a construction compound that was here previously. So there's decent separation between the application site to the right and the facing new build properties on the left hand side. So just looking at the key issues with this application, so the key points to consider are design, highway considerations and residential amenity. So in terms of matters of design, what we've got here is a block plan from the previously refused application. So members will be aware that the previous application was refused on a number of grounds, one of which was concerns regarding the design of the scheme. The subsequent current application has been revised. Various amendments have taken place, including a reduction in the widths of plots 1 and 2 and the omission of a front projection and attached garage to plot 3. And we've got a street scene plan of the scheme in its current form. So the development will be set back considerably from the highway, broadly following the building line of the existing bungalow. Dwellings will be faced in brick with tiled roofs in a fairly traditional built form, reflective of the street scene and the adjacent floors development. Therefore, having regards to the design changes made both from the previous application during the course of the current application in terms of reducing the scale, massing and roof form and front projection of the dwelling on plot 3 in particular, officers are of the view that the previous design concerns have been addressed through the current application. So moving on to landscaping, a landscaping scheme is proposed. Supplementary planting is proposed to the frontage, including a gapping up of the hedgerow with native tree species. There's supplementary planting within the sites and particularly to the western boundary to soften the appearance from the adjacent countryside. One of the key points to consider is matters of highway safety and access. So in terms of visibility, so the plan in front of us shows the visibility display from both site accesses. We've got the horizontal visibility display, which is what we normally find in an application, which shows that sufficient visibility can be achieved from both access points, commensurate to the passing vehicle speeds at both locations. And then below that, it's probably harder to see, but we've got a vertical visibility display, which shows that sufficient visibility can be achieved having regard to the crest of the hill and the form of the road. And in this regard, the Highway Authority, having considered the submitted plans provided by the applicant's transport consultant, considered that the proposed visibility would be acceptable, and they do not object to the application. So just moving back to this previous photo showing the land to the rear of the site, and considering residential amenity, as I kind of touched on before, given the separation distance between the application sites and the closest neighbouring properties, it's considered that there wouldn't be an undue overbearing or overshadowing of these neighbours. And accordingly, having regard to these various factors, the application is before you with a recommendation to grant planning permission subject to the conditions attached in the officer report.
Thank you. And we have one speaker registered, Councillor Wells, the ward councillor. So Councillor Wells, you're on. And I think you know the drill, but for completeness, you have 5 minutes. And if you're still speaking with 30 seconds to go, there'll be a reminder, and then at the end of the 5 minutes, we will ask you to stop. Okay, ready when you are.
My main objection to this plan is over intensity on a small plot. Plot 1 and plot 2 are the main concerns about safety. Will you please show the drawing of the entrance? Great. The drawing shows a 6-metre drive, which is just too small for cars to pass safely. or a van and a car. Will you please show the photographs of the cars? Great. This drive is 4 meters wide. The room on each side of the car plus 2 meters would not be enough for the 2 cars to pass safely. Also, a van and a car, which that is possible to happen. The entrance is just in the 30 limit. The mast is in the 60 limit. Will you please show a picture of the hill? Right. This shows the hill going up to the new properties. And the signs which has to be moved for the entrance for plot 1 and plot 2. That is the speed 30 sign, a flashing speed sign, and lamppost. I was told the movement of the signs come later after the plan is passed. But to me, it's part of the plan. They should be moved down the hill for a big lead up to the entrance to the house to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. Mr. Hills, do you have any points of clarification arising?
Thank you, Councillor Wells. So first of all, with reference to the width of the access, refer to the Nottinghamshire County Council Highway Design Guide, which states that for a shared private drive, a width of 4.8 metres should be provided with an additional ½ metre to either side, which would give 5.8 metres. In this case, the shared drive for the 2 houses would be 6 metres in width. The drive for the single property would be 4 metres in width, but clearly that would only be for the one property, so there would be unlikely to be a conflict with vehicles entering and leaving the site at the same time. In terms of the visibility displays and concerns regarding speed limits, the submitted visibility display that's been provided does consider the actual passing vehicle speeds rather than being set at a 30-mile-an-hour limit. The plan shows that there is a longer display taken to the west heading out of the village than east, according to that passing vehicle speed. And in terms of the movement of the 30-mile-an-hour limit itself, that's outside of the control of planning. That would be for the Highway Authority to consider under a separate process, and we have no control as part of this process to request that that 30-mile-an-hour limit is repositioned. There would be some repositioning of street furniture as part of the application, including, I understand, a lamppost and I think there's a variable speed sign which may be moved as well. But in terms of the physical repositioning of the 30-mile-an-hour limit, like I say, that's not something that we can control.
Thank you. Very good. So it falls to us now to discuss, debate and decide. Where should we start? Councillor Birch.
Thank you. Highways is where I want to start, and I think this all rests on the highways. In terms of the access, as we've heard, it meets all the requirements. I actually drive this road pretty much on a daily basis on my way home, so I'm very familiar with it, and I take the point that it's a fast road coming into the village. I personally would like to see a condition added whereby we request of the Highways Authority to move the 30-mile-an-hour sign, obviously knowing it's in their remit, and we've got no power to actually do it ourselves. But I don't see a problem. It's met the requirements, Highways have signed it off, and I don't see any basis for rejecting it.
Thank you. Councillor Calvert.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I would support what Councillor Birch has said there about the speed limit movement to that. I also just wanted clarification on the site itself in relation to the site allocation altogether. Does the development go right up to the edge of the allocation that exists in the LPP2? Excluding, which includes the mast.
Okay, so I've pulled up the plan here. So the site falls within the allocation area within the local plan part 2, but there is separation from the dwellings on the Bloor Homes site, but it still falls within the overall allocation area. And clearly there is a bit of separation in terms of the community park that's been constructed there.
Absolutely. We're going to get some input on this point about the moving of signs, etc. Then I'll come to you, Councillor Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. So just in terms of the proposed condition to move the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, unfortunately, that's not something that we could request. It wouldn't meet the 6 tests of a planning condition because it falls outside the remit of the planning process.
Thank you, Councillor Chaplin.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted clarification. Your photo of the rear of the property, where we could see the houses next, the closest houses, are they the houses from the late objections that we received? Is that the address was, do you know?
Okay, so the objectors subject to late representation are located, I think, to the sort of far distance of this photo on the right hand side. So they may or may not be. Let's see if I can find a. I think they're just out of shot of this. They're actually slightly further back than this photo is showing. So I can. It might be helpful to pull up the layout plan actually. So my understanding is the objects in question are within these properties here. So they do face the rear of the site, but there is a reasonable degree of separation. We've got a frontage shared drive and then the grassed area and footpath, and then there is tree screening along the rear boundary before you get to the site.
Mr. Ellis, please.
Thanks, Chair. I can't really see any grounds for refusing this application. It's as simple as that.
Does that come with a proposal to grant permission subject to let's let Councillor Mallender in while you're pondering that. Councillor Birch.
Can I just come back in on what I said about the condition? To be clear, just not arguing with you, I just want some clarity. I said a request, so a letter just requesting, not actually asking that they do it, but presenting our opinion that would be desirable. Does that change anything?
Okay, so we could potentially look to note to applicant to that point to put that across 2 highways, but yeah, obviously we couldn't make that happen. It would be for them to ultimately decide, but we can certainly make them aware of that.
Yes, Chair, that would be a proposal to support officers' recommendations.
Okay.
With the proviso that we at least try to gain movement of the 30-mile-an-hour traffic sign earlier rather than later. It's going to cost the same, take the same time, whatever time it's done at. So I see no reason why they shouldn't comply with that request. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. there's nobody else indicating to speak. I beg your pardon, Councillor Georgie.
Just looking at the plans. So they're requesting 3 spaces per plan, per dwelling. Am I right? 3 parking spaces per dwelling. I'm just seeing where.
Thank you. So I can confirm there are, well, we've got 2 spaces plus a garage space per dwelling, but actually on, yes, that's it. So yeah, 2 beds, 2 spaces plus a garage space.
For each property.
Councillor Mason.
Yes, thank you. On the not the photograph, but the plan of the houses as we look at them, are those trees actually there that they've drawn in, or are they for making it look nice? And if so, what I'm the trees that are going to be felled, will those trees still be there?
Thank you. So I think it'd be helpful to pull up the landscape plan, because clearly from this 2D image we can't tell exactly where those trees are and what they relate to. So I'll just pull that up. So there would be some tree removal within the site to facilitate the development, but that said, the application is accompanied by an arboricultural report, which wasn't the case in the previous submission, and that actually formed one of the previous reasons for review. So previously was the lack of an arboricultural report. So clearly in this case the quality of the trees has been assessed. Those trees in question have to be removed, but with supplementary planting to the rear of the site, along with the other planting that I referred to along the frontage. But unfortunately it's difficult to say from the sketch drawing exactly which trees they relate to.
All right. Okay. It's in the green around the edge of a development, isn't it? Now, I always understood it that green round the edge was to be kept as it was, and that it wasn't necessarily to be developed on. I'm just thinking of some other developments that we've got coming up, one not too far from me, and you know, that we say they have to have a green space around the edge. Now, one bungalow, yes, okay, I accept that, happened to be within that green space around the edge of that development. Can somebody just build houses on our green space that separates it from other developments?
Thank you, Councillor Mason. So in response to the point there, this area is private land and separate from the public open space that formed part of the Blaw's home development. Clearly that was sort of a well thought out scheme, with the house being set back deliberately with that green space, but it's not the case that this application site takes away from that public open space. It doesn't in any way impact upon that. Although it is set forward of the floor scheme. At the same time, the site is quite well enclosed in terms of vegetation screening, and with the supplementary planting that's proposed, that will help to reinforce that. So it's not, I think it's maybe different to some of the schemes you might have alluded to in terms of it doesn't detract from the public open space in any way. It is a separate entity, although it is part of the allocated site within the local plan.
I'd like to second the motion.
Okay, so with nobody this time indicating to speak, we have a motion to as per the recommendation of the report, to grant permission subject to the conditions that's been proposed by Councillor Ellis and seconded by Councillor Birch. All with the motion is to grant permission subject to the conditions in the report, with a request for a note to applicant in relation to the siting of the signs. Yeah, are both happy with that? Are you happy with that? Around. So all those in favour, please. Got that. Vote against and abstentions. So happy. So that motion is carried. Thank you. So, Councillor Wells, we're moving on to the next item now. Would you like to return to your place? And we shall move on to the second and final application, which relates to Church Close House, Kinalton. And I believe Mr. Hilton again, over to you for the presentation, please.
Thank you, Chair. So members are advised that there are no late representations on this application. So the application relates to a traditional two-storey detached dwelling located in Kinalton. The Grade 2 style listed St Luke's Church is located to the east, and the Grantham Canal is located to the west. The house itself is identified as a non-designated heritage asset. The application seeks planning permission for single and two-storey rear extensions, along with replacement vehicle gates. It's going to run through some site photos. So it's a view looking down the drive of the property, the western side of the the eastern side of the property. A view across the rear of the property, and then a view from the western side of the property. It's a view looking from the property towards the adjacent listed church. This photo was taken in winter, so it represents the kind of the worst case scenario in terms of leaf cover. And this is the view looking towards the rear, out from the rear of the property. And this is one of 3 outbuildings which is supposed to be demolished as part of the application. So some photos showing the frontage of the site. So there is a good degree of tree screening, allowing for any sort of filtered views towards the top of the property. View of the adjacent church, and then there's the view from the churchyard looking towards the back of the application property. So as you can see again, particularly when the trees are in leaf, there's only sort of limited filtered views towards the property. And then this is the view taken from the Grantham Canal. So again, just glimpses in the gaps in the hedge possible, but largely screened from the adjacent public footpath. So the key considerations are matters of design and the impact on designated and non-designated heritage assets. So in considering matters of design, this slide that I put up shows the originally submitted scheme, and through various amendments, the extensions have been reduced in scale, as can be seen on this second slide here. And again, I'm just going to show you the elevation plan. So this is what was originally submitted, and this is what has now been, or this is the current revision of the scheme, the final revision, showing substantial reduction in particularly in the two-storey rear extension element. So that's got a greater degree of subservience to the original property. And as you can see from the floor plan, the single-storey element has been significantly reduced and also pulled away from the boundary with the adjacent church, so that it doesn't impact on the root protection area of the adjacent trees. So in terms of visual amenity, whilst the extension would still retain a very sizable footprint, given the reductions in scale made, it would appear subservient to the frontage dwelling due to its lowered roof height and the largely single-storey form, apart from the two-storey element and 1/2 storey element here. The site, as I showed on the photos, benefits from a good degree of tree screening, which limits views of the proposed extensions largely to glimpses along the driveway of the property. And in terms of the proposed replacement gates, they would be in the same position as the existing and 1/2 metres in height. Having regard to their setback position and their height, officers of the view that this element would not result in undue harm to the amenities of the street scene. And moving on to the key issue of heritage, 2 points to consider: impact on the non-designated heritage asset, which is the host property, and the impact on the setting and significance of the adjacent listed church. So the Borough Council's Conservation Officer has highlighted that the proposal would result in harm to the non-designated heritage asset, and the National Planning Policy Framework requires a balanced judgment of such harms, having regard to the scale of any harm and the significance of the asset. So its officers' views, it's concurred that the development would result in a degree of harm through the attachment of the proposed extension to the built fabric of the existing building. However, the proposal would deliver benefits through the consolidation of built form. I'm just going to pull up the layout plan, which will show that. So this plan shows the consolidation of built form through the demolition of 3 existing outbuildings, which we consolidated into the extension. The side projecting element of the extension would be set back further from the highway than the current garage, quite considerably so. And as pointed out previously, the extension would have limited public visibility due to the frontage vegetation. So the facing materials would be somewhat contemporary in nature on the single-storey elements, a mixture of timber and metal cladding. However, it is the view of officers that this would provide legibility between the original dwelling and the extension. And just want to point members towards the potential fallback position in terms of what could be constructed under permitted development, which is set out in paragraph 39 of the officer report. In applying a balanced judgment, officers do not consider that the limited harm to the non-designated heritage asset and its significance, when taking into account the benefits and justification scheme, would justify a refusal of planning permission. In terms of the setting and significance of the listed church, this matter is addressed in full in paragraphs 41 to 43 of the officer report. However, in summary, the section of the extension closest to the boundary with the church would be single-storey, and as I set up before, it has been revised and pulled back considerably from the boundary through the omission of the originally proposed carport element. Tree screening along the western boundary provides some filtered screening of the between the church and the proposed extensions, as shown on my photos. And should planning permission be granted, tree protection measures are proposed as detailed in condition 4. In terms of the overall scale and massing of extensions, not considered that they would compete unduly with the church in terms of its significance, and the extensions, by virtue of their siting, would not be clearly indivisible in views of the church. So the extension and the church wouldn't be clearly viewed from the public realm at the same time. And having regard to the revisions that have been made during the course of the application, not considered that the extensions would result in harm to the setting of the listed church. Therefore, in summary, having regard to the amendments made to the extension during the course of the application, proposed development is considered acceptable in terms of visual amenity and its impact on designated and non-designated heritage assets. Accordingly, the application is before you with a recommendation to grant planning permission subject to conditions attached in the officer report.
Thank you. And we have 2 or 3, I suppose, people registered speakers here. First, Mr. and Mrs. Spencer, applicant. I understand you're going to be sharing that. Is that so? Who's first? Or are you coming together? Okay, all right, good. Yeah, sure. So just while you making yourself comfortable, I think you got the gist from before. There's the button on the right is going to light up the microphone. Got your 5 minutes. With 30 seconds to go, we'll give you a reminder, and when you're ready, over to you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is James Spencer, and this is my wife, Arwen. We're the owners of 50 Main Street, Canalton. We really appreciate your time here this evening in reviewing our planning application. We're really grateful that our planning officer, Matt Hilton, has recommended our proposal for approval. This follows over a year of close collaboration and 2 substantial revisions where we've reduced the overall floor space by 57%, or 111 square metres. Following 2 on-site meetings with Councillor Combalak, we listened to her guidance and completely omitted the first floor massing and carport, meaning we sacrificed our planned master bedroom entirely to lower the roof height. We've chosen to act positively on feedback from our planning officer, Councillor Combalak, and the ecologist, repeatedly amending our architectural approach to align with the Conservation Officer's recommendations.
Our primary goal is to protect 50 Main Street. We feel we have designed a sympathetic extension that actually reduces the total built form on site by 41 square metres. By removing 160 square metres of dilapidated outbuildings and an unsympathetic 1990s extension, we feel we are allowing the original house to breathe and restoring its historical prominence within the village.
The only remaining conservation objection from the Council's Conservation Officer is the L-shaped part of the extension. From an early stage in the process, we engaged a heritage specialist, Adam Partington, a National Heritage Lead, demonstrating our clear commitment to understanding and protecting the significance of the existing dwelling. Adam described our design as well-conceived rationalisation with a neutral impact on the church. We do understand Sarah Baker's concerns, but also acknowledge that she admits the risk to the church is at the lower end of the less than substantial scale. To be the best of our knowledge, she has not undertaken a site visit and has formed her comments based solely on a desktop assessment. By removing the outbuildings and replacing them with a sympathetic single-storey extension, we are actually further away from the church boundary. In Matt Hilton's report, he concludes that our design is clearly subservient by setting the single-storey element 8.8 metres back. It will not harm the setting or significance of the adjacent Grade 2 church. The planning officer has also confirmed in his report that the extension will have limited visibility from the public realm and will actually have a lesser visual lesser visual prominence than the garage that currently stands further forward.
On a human level, I'm battling an autoimmune disease, and this extension is a medical necessity. By creating an accessible staircase and an open plan ground floor, we feel we are future-proofing the house. Sorry, so I can remain here as my mobility changes. We have 2 young children, Cameron and Indy, and have lived here for nearly 2 years. We desperately want to settle into a safe, permanent family home. That is why we have acted on the feedback from our planning officer, Councillor Combalak, ecologists and the conservation officer. We would love to move forward today so we can finally stabilise the severe subsidence threatening 2 of our external walls and transform the property into an energy efficient, thermally sustainable home that also preserves and protects the local bat roost that lives in our roof.
If this sensitive design is refused, we will seek to secure our family's future using our full permitted development rights, as outlined in Matt Hilton's report. We could construct disjointed side extensions, rear extensions and detached outbuildings up to 3 metres high without any council oversight on design, height or materials.
30 seconds.
Such an unregulated route would result in a far greater level of visual harm to the house and the church. We're desperately trying to avoid that outcome and hope you would agree this high quality regulated alternative establishes a more considered approach to sustainably ensuring the house's future for 21st century living requirements. We're not developers looking for a profit. We're a family trying to restore the original dwelling and create a space that supports our family's needs and my wife's ongoing health condition. We respectfully ask you to support your officer's recommendation and improve this application. Thank you.
Councillor Combalak, please. Do you want the spiel, Councillor Combalak? Do you want the spiel, or shall I leave it to your vast experience? You know what's happening here. Okay.
Good evening. The property description as a red brick dwelling that introduces the planning report fails to describe the existing host property to this application, which is a Victorian property, being of character and of some significance as a non-designated heritage asset in an historic part of Kinalton village, adjacent to the Grade 2 listed church on one side and the Grantham Canal towpath on the other. Our Rushcliffe Conservative officer's last comment in March that despite some amendments, the L-shaped form of the extension still impacts the non-designated heritage asset of Church Close, as well as the Grade 2 listed church, is very relevant. To quote the Conservation Officer, who has expressed very strong views, as such, the application cannot be supported, and I would refer you to my original response for further detail. As before, I consider the proposal will have a negative effect on the NDHA, harming its significance. I consider that this harm could be avoided. The proposed extensions, including the integrated garage, would negatively compete with the heritage asset. No clear or convincing justification has been presented, and it seems the proposal would offer no heritage benefits to the existing dwelling and NDHA. And later she says, while the previously proposed integrated garage is now removed and the footprint and bulk of the L-shaped extension is reduced to the north, these are not sufficient revisions to avoid the harmful impacts to the pleasant and characterful Victorian Gothic style dwelling, which is an NDHA and the Grade 2 listed church adjacent. The main objection is the proposed L-shaped projection, which bears no resemblance or connection to the existing Victorian property and introduces a totally contemporary format described by the Conservation Officer as alien out of keeping with this historic area of the village and street scene, not clearly shown on the screen. We didn't show the architect's impression. Where there is the old bakehouse, previously used as the old post office, converted blacksmith shop with adjoining sympathetically developed land, canal keeper's cottage, old schoolhouse, bridge house, and the bridge across the Grantham Canal, which runs alongside the property, together with popular public towpath walk. The L-shaped flat roof metal clad projection completely destroys the square format appearance characteristic of the Victorian property and would have the appearance of a commercial building, offering no public benefit to offset the harm. Paragraph 36 of the officer's report refers to the contemporary form, an introduction of ultra-modern black-grey metal cladding. This is entirely out of keeping with the host property and indeed nearby properties. The planning officer suggests vegetation will screen the extension, but that by its very nature may die or be cut back. The artist's impression, not shown, of the contemporary extension shows the view from the road and the adjacent church, which would be totally out of keeping with the character of the area. Observation is made that permitted development may allow some form of extension. However, this should not be a reason for granting permission. It rather gives the impression that consent would be a fait accompli. I absolutely agree with the Rushcliffe Conservation Officer's comment at paragraph 18 and her lack of support for the application, and feel the committee should be guided by her. I would ask members to view all the Conservation Officer's comments and the helpful suggestions on March the 12th for the applicant to review the application.
Thank you, Councillor Con-Black. Mr. Hilton, are there any points of clarification arising from the speakers?
I think most points are clearly set out in the officer report in terms of our assessment. All I want to highlight is that clearly the Conservation Officer as a consultee will set out what harms, if any, are arising to a heritage asset, but it is for the planning officers to then consider in the planning balance what benefits there are and weighing up the harms and the benefits arising. So it may be that, as I've set out here, we don't deny there would be a degree of harm to the non-designated heritage asset through the physical alteration of the built form, through the extension of the building, but there are benefits in our view that outweigh that harm.
Okay, thank you. So with that, it falls to us to discuss, debate, decide. Where shall we start? Councillor Calvert, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I went down to visit the site today, and I found it very difficult to find because it's completely hidden by trees. Now, admittedly, if I went down 6 months earlier or in the winter time, it would be a bit different because there were no leaves on the tree. But even so, I felt it was quite well hidden in terms of a public realm. Having read the report, I'm quite satisfied that when they began the application, the harm outweighed the benefit. But with a year's discussion and 2 major revisions, I feel that it's the opposite way around now, that the benefits outweigh the harm. So I'll be supporting the application.
Thank you. Councillor Birch.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think it would be helpful if we could have the CGIs from the bundle of the what the property is going to look like. I've also visited the property and I had no trouble finding it. The big 50 on the side of the drive there and a great big church to look for. I find myself agreeing with Councillor Con-Black, and I think the design from a personal level, I think the architecture is stunning and I think it's absolutely fantastic. But I think the crux of this is the conservation aspect. And there is a formal objection, obviously, from the conservation officer. I am concerned about the harm it's going to do to that church, which is a Grade 2 listed building, and there are not many of those in Rushcliffe. It will be seen, particularly in winter. There are deciduous trees nearest the road, which, when the leaves fall, will mean that this is visible from the footpath leading up to the church and that vicinity. I think it will be seen from the street, from the vantage points I've walked all the way around it, all the way to the canal and up the other way. And I am concerned about the irreversible harm to a heritage asset. And I think as a council, we have a duty to protect areas like this and local landmarks like this. And I am minded to actually object to this based on that. We'll come on to it later on, but I also don't think that the extension, even in its reduced form, is subordinate to the main dwelling. I think it's very large, and I appreciate that's subjective, but we'll perhaps come on to that later on. But conservation-wise, I agree with Councillor Cumberland.
Thank you. Councillor Mallender, please.
Thank you. I'm actually going to mention a different point. Do we know what species of bats there are in the house? Because it does matter in terms of mitigation. So with mitigation, if it is a common pipistrelle, for instance, it might be okay. It goes up to from about 13 to 74% that they'll move into bat boxes. If it's brown long-eared bats, which are the type that are most often in buildings, for instance, where I work at Woollerton, there is a brown long-eared bat roost in the roof of the Industrial Museum. They will not move into bat boxes. Also, is it a maternity roost? Are the bats using the area for breeding? Because again, mitigation with bat boxes will not work for any type of bat for a maternity roost. So I think I would need to find out. I would need to find out that information, and I'm sorry that I don't know whether or not some way of keeping that bat roost is possible with a slightly altered plan. And let's hope that could be the case.
You, Councillor Mander. So I can confirm, based on the submitted bat survey, that the species is brown long-eared bats. So set out in the proposed conditions, bat mitigation measures will be proposed and required by condition. And further follow-up surveys would also be required prior to commencement of any demolition works. I think a key point is with regard to the main extension to the dwelling. The bat roost would remain within the dwelling itself. The submitted ecology report highlights that the proposal could result in disturbance of it, but it would not result in a physical removal of the bat roost, as there wouldn't be an alteration to the roof of the existing dwelling.
That would be with respect to the bat issue, or do you have anything to come back on with respect to that?
No, I just wanted to ask about the bats and
Okay.
the species involved. Thank you for the information.
So, look,
turning sort of back to the heritage aspect, you know, both with respect to the host dwelling and the church, you know, conscious of the requirement here to balance the scale of harm and the, you know, significance of the asset versus the benefits. And, you know, my assessment would be more in line with Councillor Calvert's than Councillor Birch's, for what it's worth. Councillor Ellis.
Doesn't seem to be working. It is now. Yes, I agree with what you said, and I support Councillor Calvert's observations.
Councillor Way, please.
Thank you. I too was going to ask about the bats. And there's one outbuilding that's going to be destroyed, demolished, which I believe has a bat roost in it. So I don't know how mitigation would work with that, with what the Councillor Mullender said. My other concern is the Conservation Officer stresses the L shape as being the issue with whether or not it's harmful. I have concerns about the finish on it, because I just, maybe this is too much of a personal thing, but the idea of black metal cladding to me doesn't sit well with a traditional brick built building. And I do wonder if changing the finish on that, or even not leaving it flat roofed, would actually make the whole proposal a little bit more acceptable, because I think it would soften it and blend in better. Mr. Hilton said something about, I can't remember exactly what he said, but something about it was okay to fit those two things together. So I'd like to know, remind me what it was you said and what's the basis of it.
The way that I read the report was that the greater the distinction between the original dwelling and the extension or the addition helps to create the to emphasize the difference between the two parts. So rather than make it look like the original one, but it isn't, the contrast, I think these days is, you know, often preferred from a conservation perspective to highlight the difference. But I'll, you know, defer to the professionals if that characterization of that is wrong.
Thank you. So there are two elements to the scheme: the two-storey element, which would be faced in a traditional red brick and tile, and then it's a single-storey element that would be of a contemporary finish. And yes, I feel it's important to have that legibility. It is the single-storey element is a flat roof modern addition, and to try and replicate the sort of facing materials and appearance of the existing dwelling, I think could potentially detract from its appearance and significance, whereas a contrasting material does create that clear separation and legibility. So over the years you can see how a property has developed and progressed, and we do often try and avoid what we call a pastiche design by creating something which is clearly distinctive from the original property and highlights its significance in its own right. But just one point I wanted to highlight is with regards to the side extension element. So just my pointer is here. There is a forward projecting brick bay that's proposed that would be faced in a traditional red brick, and that would potentially help to soften the appearance of the development from views along the drive from the street scene. So only small elements of the cladding would be visible, and you'd have the brick element in front. I set out before, in terms of the demolition of the buildings, this will be set back further than an existing garage, which in itself is not particularly sort of sympathetic to the original dwelling. I think that's all I want to kind of raise on that point.
Nobody is indicating at this stage. Anybody desperate to? Anybody want to raise anything that hasn't been discussed so far? Okay, well, I haven't got anything proposed or seconded at the moment, so I'll throw that out there for you. Well, nobody's indicated that they want to raise any other points, and as far as I'm aware, nothing's been proposed or seconded yet. So I think that's where we're at. If there's Councillor Chaplin.
So I'll propose that we accept officers' recommendations and agree with Councillor Calvert. I think I'll trust our officers have weighed up the benefits and the harms, and I will go with their view.
Okay, so that was that having been proposed and seconded before, just for the avoidance of doubt, before moving to a vote, is there anything anybody else wants to add, raise, comments on? Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Chair. I did go and look at the property in the week. I did walk along the street into the church, and I walked along the canal basin as well, the canal. When I went in the church, there is green trees there, and I can see the point about in winter, but maybe we can make it a condition they put a fence up, a 6-foot fence, so people can't see the new building.
Thank you, Councillor Wells. So I think in response to that point, the green sort of verdant setting of the listed church is obviously quite an important part of its overall setting, and I don't think we would want to encourage something that distracts from that soft boundary treatment.
Councillor Birch?
Thank you. One of the points I wanted to raise was the screening. So as I say, in winter, I think it's going to be insufficiently screened. With regards to the trees that are in situ already, my understanding is there's no TPOs on them. To my mind, it is essential that they are protected. What is to stop, and I'm in no way insinuating that you're going to chop them down or anything like that, but from again going back to the heritage aspect of this, that is essential in providing that barrier and screening the heritage asset from this application. What can we put in place? Could we put a condition on here to insist that they are protected or not removed, or else there's nothing there, and is that not what's the word, an omission? You know, should we not really get that tied down?
Thank you, Councillor Birch. I'll pick up on that. I think we can't enforce TPOs upon all of these trees. The site is outside of a conservation area. They're not protected in their own right. But I do think we need to point to the fact that we got protection during the course of development, which is conditioned, and the trees themselves provide the main aspect of privacy for the property. I don't think that can be replaced by fencing. I don't think you would get the same level of privacy that the property needs So I think on this case, we'd have to trust that the extent of trees there are critical to providing the privacy for the property that the owners would likely want to retain when carrying out a development of this style on that basis. But we can't, by way of condition, enforce the trees to be protected or anything of that kind, I'm afraid.
Councillor Calvert, please.
Yeah, just in response to the idea of putting up screening fence or whatever. Currently, there are a lot of inappropriate extensions to the house. There's a lot of wooden sheds and outbuildings, and those will be removed and replaced by what I would certainly conclude to be a very nice modern design. So I don't feel the need for screening, to be honest.
Councillor Mallender.
Yeah. I've been on planning for a very long time, and I'm sure that we have managed to put conditions in to say we can protect trees. Is it that the trees are not in the area that is being developed, that they are as part of St Luke's Church, are they? I'm sorry, I haven't been able to go there. I've just been on holiday. I've only just got back. My train was late. And also I don't drive, so I can't get there. But yeah, is that the reason why we can't protect the trees in any way? I'm not, not necessarily a TPO, because I realise that a tree has to be under threat to receive a TPO and is likely to be taken down, whereas the reasoning that we've just heard indicates that that is not going to be the case. But nevertheless, there have been plenty of applications made where we have put down conditions where we protect trees. So if you could explain that again, please, only in terms that I didn't quite get it. Sorry.
That's fine. No, forgive me. I may not have been clear with what I was describing there. May have been misunderstood. So during the building process, the trees will be protected as per condition 4 of the recommended conditions. So tree protection measures will be in place that will be compliant with British standards. It's putting formal ongoing protection in perpetuity for the existing trees is something that can't be conditioned, because by their very nature they are a living thing, and we cannot control them by way of condition. You will perhaps sometimes be aware of landscaping conditions which is put on to properties, and that comes with the requirement for, if anything dies within 5 years, for them to be replanted and replaced. So that's fairly common, but again, that relates to new landscaping that's being input and is in there to protect those new trees which may fail within that time. Whereas what we're dealing with here is established vegetation. Such a condition therefore wouldn't be appropriate in that regard. And as I say, it goes beyond the 6 tests of the conditions to place any sort of protection condition on these trees in perpetuity, but they will be protected during the course of the building works. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking around it again, and nobody's indicating to speak. So I think we've had the motion proposed to grant planning permission subject to the conditions in the report, proposed by Councillor Chaplin and seconded by Councillor Calvert. I'll ask all those in favour to indicate now, please. Those against? 7-4.
Yep.
Okay. I think everyone was accounted for, and so on that basis, the decision is that permission be granted subject to the conditions in the report. We move on then. Please don't feel that you need to stay or anything. If you wish to exit stage left, which I would encourage you to do in the nicest possible way, please feel free to do so. As we move on to the final item, noting appeals.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, there's 3 months worth of appeal decisions here to note. Obviously, I won't go through them all, but if there's any questions that you may have, feel free to ask them now or afterwards. I will probably just highlight the last 2 months. If you've noted the appeals, they've all been dismissed, which is a really good sort of run of decisions for the council.
Yes, I would. I'd echo that. Some late season form, a la one of our local football teams, I suppose you could say. Any questions or comments about the appeals? So on that basis, we will close the meeting. Thank you.